Hello and welcome to APTN National News Weekend. I'm Sav Jonesa. The Manitoba government made an announcement Wednesday about the search of a privately owned landfill outside of Winnipeg. The search is for the remains of 2 women from the Long Plain First Nation. They are 2 of the 4 women killed by a Winnipeg serial killer who was found guilty for 4 counts of first-degree murder this past summer. With more, here's T.R. Wheatley.
It's been 2 years now.
Families and government side by side at the foot of the Prairie Green landfill,
where we believe the remains of Morgan Harris and Mercedes Myron are.
With the Harris and Myron families surrounding him, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew announced his government has started phase 3 of 5 of searching this privately owned landfill outside of Winnipeg. Kinew says stage 3 is focused on completing the physical search site.
This pad that we're standing on is built on successive layers of rock and aggregate that has been designed to provide the highest environmental standards and protection for this area, and also to ensure the health and safety of all the people who are going to be working here.
Last week, materials were moved from above the area where they believe the women's remains are. Anne Mamakin is the project lead. She said the hiring of searchers is another component of phase 3 and has been done through a families first approach.
The structure of the search operations was established under the guidance of forensic anthropologist and search director, Dr. Emily Holland. And in partnership with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, we're recruiting 3 levels of search technicians.
Harris's oldest daughter, Cambria Harris, sharing she's also a part of the recruitment panel.
We're overwhelmed with the sheer compassion within individuals that we're meeting along the way. The compassion that people share as we sit through these interviewing people for the search.
Both her mother and Myron were killed in May 2022 by serial killer Jeremy Skibitsky. In August, he was found guilty of first-degree murder ×4 and sentenced to life in prison for the killings of Rebecca Contois, Harris, Myron, and the yet-to-be-identified person given the name Mascoude Bejiekwe, or Buffalo Woman. The trial revealed details about how Harris and Myron's remains ended up at this landfill site. Melissa Robinson is Harris's cousin. She said that her family and the Myrons are not the only families they are doing this for.
When we go in, we're going in for everybody. When you look at the numbers of our MMIWG2S just here alone in our city, I'm almost certain, and I'm sure most of you know as well, that we're certainly going to be finding more than just whom we're going in looking for.
Stage 4 is expected to begin in early December, and that is the actual search of the site. While that is still at least 6 weeks away, Kinew says getting to this point has been no easy feat.
Yes, there's also a hydro transmission line here that was specifically constructed to bring power to this site. There is a new road that was built to provide additional access to this site. You have the ready-to-move home that is going to be the cultural space for the families.
A space where the families can come to pray, grieve, and get some rest in private as the search continues so they can take their loved ones home for a proper burial. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
What should have been a normal stop to pick up an online order at a Home Depot store in North Winnipeg turned into an incident that has now led the customers choosing to take their business elsewhere. Both believe racism was the reason things turned out the way they did. We spoke to the 2 customers involved and the company. Here's Creason Ajgate with that story.
You know, there's other places where we can spend our money. And we've done a lot of business over the years.
Long-time customers Calvin Niepenak and Jennifer Chartrand are choosing to shop elsewhere after this incident that happened on Tuesday, October 1st, involving a Toro security guard.
You gotta go home, buddy.
What did you tell them?
The couple says they went to this Home Depot on the 800 block of Leela Avenue in Winnipeg to pick up the door they purchased online. When they arrived, they decided to stop and look at the Halloween display and snowblowers. And that is when a security guard approaches Niepenak.
Oh my God.
He says, what are you doing here? What do you want? And I said, excuse me? That's exactly what I said, excuse me? And then he said, what are you doing here? What do you want? I said, I'm here to pick up an online order. I said, you know what? You don't even work here. You're just a security guard. I said, you're not an employee here. And then that's when he got mad.
This guy just came up to us and he's like almost attacking Calvin. What the hell?
Chartrand's cell phone video begins recording about 1 minute after the initial interaction. The guard then takes out his cell phone to make his own recording, while Chartrand and Nipanak try to get the incident resolved at the customer service desk.
Oh my God, I'm like flipping out.
Then, a heated back and forth between Nipanak and the security guard.
You said the same thing. No, I didn't. You just told me to go back to my country.
Chartrand says she wanted to record everything, fearing that if she didn't, the interaction could have been a lot worse.
Because I've heard these stories go terrible, you know? I fumbled for my phone and I instantly went live.
Look at that. Look at that. He's still going at it. He's still going at it.
In the end, they were told by the security guard to leave the store, both upset and without their purchase.
We were completely humiliated. Absolutely. I felt like a criminal when we weren't.
Home Depot reached out to them to apologize and say they started an investigation. In a statement, a Home Depot spokesperson said, "We take these matters seriously, and the actions of the third-party security guard involved were unacceptable and did not align with our values. Customer service, respect, and safety are always a priority. I can tell you that the security guard involved is no longer at this store." APTN News attempted to get a comment from Toro Security in Winnipeg about the incident and the security guard involved. However, the company told APTN News they were unavailable numerous times. Chartrand says she wants cultural sensitivity training for Home Depot and the third-party staff it hires, while Nipanak believes there's a more serious reason as to why this happened. And after years of being watched and followed in other stores, Nipanak decided to take a stand on this day.
It's, how do you say it, racial profile. That's exactly what it is, you know, and I happen to look very indigenous, you know, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Home Depot also said they offered Nipanak and Chartrand their online order for free, along with free delivery to their home and an added Home Depot gift card for the trouble they went through. The couple said they did not accept the offer. Families of Black and Indigenous peoples who have died while in police custody were on Parliament Hill Tuesday calling for a public inquiry. Between August 29th and September 18th of this year, a 20-day stretch, a total of 9 Indigenous people died following interactions with police forces across the country. This has led to renewed calls for greater oversight over the RCMP and municipal police forces. Laura Holland is a Wet'suwet'en woman. Her son Jared Lawns was killed by RCMP officers in Campbell River, British Columbia on July 8, 2021. At a press conference, she expressed the frustration of families.
This is a state of emergency for us. It's a state of emergency for Indigenous people. We're being killed on the streets, in our homes, and everywhere. And no one is saying anything. No one cares. We want you to care. Even if you don't care, at least do something, say something. Speak up, stand with us. It's time.
The Saugeen Anishinaabe First Nation in Manitoba held a somber healing event Monday in the aftermath of suddenly losing one of their members. Last Monday, a 26-year-old woman was murdered in the community. On October 14th at 12:20 a.m., Powerview RCMP received a call about a woman being assaulted on North Shore Road in Saugeen. The First Nation is located about an hour and a half north of Winnipeg. They located the woman on the side of the road where she was pronounced deceased. On Wednesday, RCMP charged a 15-year-old boy with second-degree murder. The next day, they charged an additional suspect, 20-year-old Lexi Fontaine, also with second-degree murder. Both suspects remain in custody while the investigation continues. A community advocate in Winnipeg hopes his dream of a downtown urban reserve comes true. We'll have more on that after the break. massive rail yard near downtown Winnipeg is being considered for relocation. With a feasibility study underway, so are talks of what could take its place. APTN spoke with a community advocate to hear about his dream for the urban land. This century-old rail yard near downtown Winnipeg spans more than 450 acres, or about 2 square kilometers. Known as the Winnipeg Yards, it's part of a decades-old conversation to possibly relocate rail lines throughout the city. The Winnipeg Yards currently act as a dividing line between the North End and Central neighborhoods.
For the longest time, there's always been like, oh, you're on that side of the tracks, I'm on this side.
But now a 2-year-long, $200,000 feasibility study is underway to see if relocation is possible, and it has some residents talking. Josh Niepenak has an idea to bring unity to the area in urban reserve.
When I envision this, I see like a green space and, you know, nations in Treaty 1 coming together, setting up their teepees so that, you know, anybody, the relatives out on the street aren't houseless. You know, youth in Carrick could come here, learn about their culture, experience, you know, what traditional living looks like, even if they remain, you know, an off-reserve individual. You know, and just ceremonies to take place right here in the open land.
Niepenak grew up in the North End for a lot of his life and remembers finding few ways to access his culture while being a youth in care. It's a struggle many Indigenous people face while living in a city, and Winnipeg has the highest urban Indigenous population in Canada at over 100,000 people, according to the 2021 census, many of whom live in the North End and central neighborhoods.
Having, you know, the sacred land here, or having a land where I could see my own culture, or where I could go and, you know, sit in a teepee, listen to an elder, or attend a ceremony here, would have been so much needed.
The 160-acre and former Capyarn Barracks site in southwest Winnipeg will be home to an urban reserve in the coming years, but it is not centrally located. Niepenak sent his idea to Premier Wab Kinew for consideration. Indigenous Economic Development Minister Ian Bushy responded to Niepenak's letter. He said the idea would have significant long-term implications, but many factors need to be considered. He outlined crucial steps like conducting feasibility and environmental impact studies, engaging with the community and stakeholders, determining the associated costs, and considering zoning and land use plans. Bushy continued that the process is complex and challenging, requiring careful planning, coordination, and support from partners in all levels of government. Leah Gazan is the Member of Parliament for Winnipeg Centre, which borders on the Winnipeg Yard. She says she's open to all ideas of what could go there if the tracks are moved.
I know that because of the contamination of the land, there's a lot of questions in terms of whether it would be safe for that in the future. I'm not sure, but certainly support any sort of ideas in terms of bridging the divide in the city.
Josh says if the rail yard isn't moved, or if something else goes there instead, the idea should still be considered elsewhere.
You know, because the need is there, the need for people to have access to land-based activities where it's low barrier, in terms of, you know, like you shouldn't have to go like 3-4 hours out of the city to do a land-based activity, you know, for it to be like right here for everybody to experience and enjoy.
He hopes Indigenous representation and consultation will be part of the feasibility study to ensure their thoughts are heard for what happens next to this Treaty 1 land.
Which means the line that's left over, you know, so like in terms of like...
A women's halfway house for those involved with the justice system was opened in Whitehorse last year, but just a year and a half later, its doors have temporarily closed. Sarah Connors tells us why.
This women's halfway house in Whitehorse was hailed as the first of its kind in the north when it opened in early 2023. But now the building sits empty. The government-funded Teini Haven Women's Home, located next door to the Whitehorse Correctional Center, was operated by the nonprofit Connective. It has space for up to 8 women transitioning through or out of the criminal justice system, like those on supervised release. Earlier this month, Yukon Health and Social Service Minister Tracy Ann McPhee told the territorial legislature that the program had been put on pause at the end of September. She said 7 women were enrolled in the program, but all but one had left to deal with their issues elsewhere. She said the program wasn't very successful and that putting it on pause was the right course of action.
We have a facility at Teini Haven that can house people.
However, the Council of Yukon First Nations Executive Director Shadell Chambers disagrees.
This program ending and really impacts Indigenous women.
The council partnered with Connective to provide cultural supports for the program because Indigenous women are overrepresented in the justice system.
It's really important that we do have a program available for women so that they have an option other than incarceration, so they have opportunities to connect with their children, attend programming in the community, and get access to supports and services.
McPhee says the government is evaluating Connective supportive housing programs, including the women and men's halfway house programs. The evaluation will determine whether or not the programs are effective and meeting outcomes. The evaluation is expected to be completed by February 2025. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
The Yukon hasn't updated its electoral boundaries since 2008. Now, with a population that's ever growing, an independent commission recently released its final report with suggestions on how to improve representation in the territory's legislature. As Sarah Connors tells us, Yukon's NDP party is advocating for one First Nations riding in particular to remain on its own.
The Yukon Electoral Boundaries Commission released its final report on Yukon's electoral boundaries. There are currently 19 ridings in the territory, 11 of which are in Whitehorse. Earlier this spring, the commission suggested merging the Vuntut-Gwitchin riding and the fly-in community of Old Crow, with a population of less than 200 people, with the Klondike riding. The proposed merge would better balance the number of votes. But the commission found there was disagreement with its suggestion. Some argued the Vuntut-Gwitchin riding is unique because of its remoteness and strong First Nations identity. After considering public feedback, the commission changed its recommendation. Its final report notes the Vuntut-Gwitchin riding should remain separate.
Rural Yukon is going to lose as Whitehorse grows. And it's really important that we make sure that there's still rural voices.
Now, Yukon NDP leader Kate White wants to take the issue one step further. Last week, she put forward a private member's bill to amend the Elections Act. It would guarantee 8 rural MLAs, regardless of population growth in Whitehorse. The amendment would also help preserve the electoral district of Vuntut-Gwitchin as its own separate riding. The bill could be up for a final vote as early as next week.
It's really important that Vuntut-Gwitchin, despite its very small population, it still has representation.
The Vuntut-Gwitchin First Nation said in a statement it's glad to see the commission recommended it remain its own riding, and it supports White's bill. Earlier this week, Yukon government tabled the territory's new Electoral Boundaries Act. The act contains recommendations from the commission's final report. The bill still requires legislative approval before it can become law. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Coming up after the break, a story on the healing power of art. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Our next story is about a man who says art has not only reconnected him with his culture, but has also been a source of healing. APTN's Teini Haven has this story.
Gregory Williams says music is a big part of who he is.
Well, I've been drawing since I could hold a pencil. My mom was very supportive, and I grew up as a Ukrainian Catholic. My parents separated when I was quite young and moved away from Haida Gwaii when I was a child.
Williams said he returned to Haida Gwaii when he was 18 and reconnected with his Haida father's side of the family. He said he was incredibly inspired by Haida master carvers like Jim Hart and the late Jim Edenshaw, to name a few. Today, Gregory Williams is preparing to do a tattoo. He says being able to express his artistic ability in this way has given him so much freedom as an artist.
It's that connection of skin marking and tattooing on people to help them evolve as a person spiritually and mentally. For me, it's a reminder, you know, and taking a part of your ancestry and putting it on your skin.
But tattooing isn't the only way he expresses his love of art. Williams is also a skilled jewelry carver. He makes everything from bracelets to pendants. In 1998, he and his brother Chris began to work at the Larvae factory in Vancouver, where they learned the art of making guitars. They came up with the idea to make custom-made guitars with elaborate painting and adorning them with art made out of abalone, using unique Haida art. The bridge on the guitars is also shaped like a canoe. That's when the brothers started their company, Haida Guitars, along with 2 other partners they met at the guitar factory. They made 70 custom guitars in total, and even gifted one of those rare guitars to musician Sarah McLaughlin.
The spruce is salvage wood from Masset, and the curve-finger bracing is also salvage spruce from Masset, which is the north end of Haida Gwaii. And this was done by it's blow-down wood given to us by a fellow named Trevor Lavoie at the time. And our goal at the time was to have the company move home and use like salvaged alder, yew wood, and spruce to make a guitar all indigenous to Haida Gwaii.
The company eventually dissolved, but he says he is proud of what they were able to accomplish.
Me as an artist 24 years ago and now is night and day, to say the least, you know. I look at the stuff that I did then and I just like, wow. But everything happens for a reason.
For Williams, he says he has a lot of people to thank for getting him here and just wants to continue to evolve as an artist and to take care of his family, one tattoo at a time, making his dreams come true. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
That's all the time we have for your APTN National News Weekend tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're looking for more stories, please visit our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Sav Jonesa, and from all of us here at APTN, take care of each other and have a great weekend.